Hello, everyone. My name is Benjamin Day,
And I'm Jillian Mason.
and this is Medicare for All, the podcast for everybody who needs health care. Just this past week, Jillian, billionaire Mark Cuban launched, who you may know from the Shark Tank and various other endeavors, launched a new healthcare service, and it is called, because he is a total megalomaniac, the Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company. He put his name in the title. The company claims to sell prescription drugs at more affordable prices online, and we claim that Mark Cuban is a full-on asshole. So the site says that all drugs sold through the service are offered at the manufacturer's cost with only a 15% markup. And if you're not watching the live feed, I'm putting only in quotes because actually 15% is quite a high markup. But is it for real? So what we're going to do now is kind of break down what Mark Cuban is trying to do here, including whether this is a viable solution for sort of the rising drug costs that are probably affecting almost every single one of our lives, some of us more than others.
Yeah. So you don't actually watch Shark Tank, right? So you're familiar with Mark Cuban from his sports antics, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. So he owns the Dallas. I'm a huge Boston Celtics basketball fan. He owns the Dallas Mavericks team, which in the last couple of years had like a massive internal harassment, sexual harassment, and like work culture scandal. So I know him as that asshole, and also the guy who sits by the court with like a hideous toupee all the time. But I don't know him from his TV fame, which I think is why he's mostly famous. So
yeah. So I am a huge Shark Tank fan. I maintain that it is the best way to understand capitalism. I learned a lot. But he is like a jackass, right? So he is the richest guy on Shark Tank. That's kind of his claim to fame. But he's also, he's a compassionate capitalist. So he always his whole shtick is doing good while doing well, or doing well by doing good. Doing well, I think, is the money part, and doing good is supposed to be some kind of philanthropy.
That always happens. Right up to the tax deduction write-off, and then no more doing good, right?
Yeah. Also, a fun detail about Mark Cuban is that he originally made his money by working as a salesman for a software company, and he sold CompuServe. Which, if anyone else was on the internet in the early 90s, you will remember CompuServe as being, even at that point, the shittiest.
I was going to say that actually makes me like him a little bit more. So he lost me in parts A and B, part C kind of got me back a little bit. So, yeah. So what is this Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company? I thought I would start, Jillian, by reading some of the headlines in the coverage.
Tell me how they're talking about this. Yeah.
All right. Well, you're in Texas, so let's start with, and so is Mark Cuban, actually. So here's the Dallas News. Can Mark Cuban save America from high prescription drug prices? I like the editors write the subject line, so I'm sure that was accurate. Associated Press, Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company's online pharmacy launches with lowest prices on 100 life-saving prescriptions.
Life-saving.
I also like when they just copy from the press release and put it into the thing. And here's a headline from MSN. Billionaire Mark Cuban's discounted pharmacy has launched. Quote, bypass middleman and outrageous markups. He's bypassing the outrageous markups, not creating the outrageous markups.
You characterize these as news headlines, but they are all directly copied from the press release.
Right. Yeah.
They're advertisements.
And for people who have never done media work, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, Jillian, but even when we very, pure of spirit nonprofits fighting for the good of the world send out press releases and they get covered in the press, normally they're just copying and pasting the press release that we send out as well. So sorry to reveal the trade secrets here. But Jillian, what actually is this, hyperbolic, is that the word? Hyperbolizing, hyperbold headlines aside, what's the actual company doing?
Yes, beyond the hyperbole, she said as a former
Mm.
English teacher. Beyond the hyperbole is so basically this company is a pharmacy benefits manager. They call this a PBM. You can remember that acronym because it stands for Pharma Bullshit Mountain. Um, and these PBMs basically work directly with health insurers, the drug makers, and the pharmacies to manage drug benefits and the cost of your prescription medicine. So, like the biggest one in the country, the biggest pharma bullshit mountain is CVS's Caremark, right? So currently, the Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company, or MCCPDC, just to add as much alphabet soup in here as possible, currently has around 100 generic drugs, popular drugs, fairly popular, and they're for sale on the site. So one example is the Imtinib, which is a leukemia treatment drug. Typically retails at $9,500 a month, which is costly. And but on the site, it's available for $47 a month, which is less costly.
Right. And just to jump in here, I don't think anyone pays the $9,500 a month cost. That's not what insurance, that's like, there's this old, the way it's previously been working in the US is that usually drug companies negotiate pretty low prices for insurance companies, but they used to try and totally screw over uninsured people. Like if you go to a pharmacy as an uninsured person, you would just see a price. I mean, this was, 5 or 6 years ago. You would see a price that was like astronomically higher than what any real person could or would pay. So I'm guessing that's the $9,500 a month, but
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's, you know what? Fuck it. Even $47 a month is ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
Just saying.
Right. Compared to what it takes to make the pill. So
the thing that makes these guys, these guys being the Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company, they claim that their biggest kind of difference, the secret sauce, as Mark Cuban would call it on Shark Tank, is its commitment to transparency and avoiding those middlemen. And so basically with every drug for sale on the site, the company lists what drives the cost, right? So it's basically like, it'll give you the drug price. It'll tell you, why it's so expensive. And it'll give you a direct price comparison with the retail price and the price that they're going to offer you. Which we've been to the site and it does that. No lies. So yeah, obviously this is a utopian solution to our problems. Ben, is this for real?
Yeah, and I want to reassure people. Pharmacy benefit managers are actually a big part of the healthcare system, but there's no way to talk about them with people's eyes glazing over, including the person speaking, and just like going into this is all way too complicated coma. But often I was gonna show my health card and show you where there's a separate PBM that manages your drugs, but then I was like, maybe I shouldn't actually show my drug card on a public YouTube channel.
Why?
I mean, maybe I should just try it and see what happens, But I want to reassure you that if you find PBMs boring, we are going to talk about our own drug use later in the podcast and exactly what our prices are on this site and other options. So I would say, for the question, is this real or is this a real good thing? I would say a couple things. One, there's the most important caveat is that this is really a site for folks without health insurance. You cannot use your insurance to get drugs covered through the site. So, there might be circumstances where you would find a drug on the site that is actually less than your copay for your insurance. So there could be insured people who will use the site, but by and large, it's going to be for uninsured people. So I think it's actually a good development for folks who are uninsured. But when you see a headline like, can Mark Cuban save America from high prescription drug costs? That is not the most people who have workplace health insurance or Medicare or Medicaid. This is probably going to be totally irrelevant to you if you have any of those types of insurance plans. So that's one big caveat there. The other thing, a caveat on top of the caveat, is that it is only selling generic drugs, which is, I think I looked it up and, oh God, where do I have? I've lost all my notes here, but it's
Less than
probably
11%.
yeah. It's like
Yeah.
less than 15% of our spending is actually on generic drugs. So if you're uninsured but you need a brand name drug, this is also not going to help you. And again, they're only starting off selling 100 drugs. So they're probably looking for the biggest money makers, is my guess. So if you have even a generic drug that's not on their list, then this is also not going to help you. So I think, I don't know where we're going to end at the end of this evaluation. Probably it's a good development, but for a very small subsection of population and for a small subsection of their drugs that they might need. So I just want to temper your expectations and temper your news headlines there. So
that's fair. That's fair. I think this plan, honestly, if I had to guess, and I'm a cynic, I would guess that this plan is going to be mostly beneficial for Mark Cuban and the small portion of people who have invested in this.
If it wasn't, I mean, would the Shark Tank guy be making it?
It's true. He wants to do good and do well. Yeah.
Right. So what do you think the long game is for this? Like, why is this a viable for-profit enterprise?
I mean, I'm still not willing to say that it is a viable for-profit enterprise, but
right.
I think the long game for the company, and they pretty much announced this themselves. Right now, they're working with third-party folks to actually manufacture the drugs, but they actually are going to be building an $11 million drug manufacturing plant in Dallas. So basically, they're going to be making the drugs, selling the drugs, shipping the drugs to you. It's basically like if you have a pot dealer who grows his own weed.
Yeah, and then I'll be interested to see
the savings onto you.
I'll be interested to see where transparency goes from there, because their transparency model is we only have 15% markup on the manufacturer price. But then if you are also the manufacturer, you can charge whatever you want as the manufacturer price. You can mark that up as much as you want as the manufacturer and then have 15%. And by the way, a 15% markup is not a good deal. I mean, if any product that you bought at a supermarket shelf marked itself up by 15%, it wouldn't be on a supermarket shelf anymore. If any supermarket marked itself up 15%, it wouldn't be a supermarket anymore. There's basically no industry that has 15% markups except the pharmaceutical industry, which often has just extraordinary profit margins, just insane overhead costs.
And clothing actually has a really high markup, but you don't want your the drug company to mimic the Banana Republic and the Gap. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, Haley Mack on Facebook, by the way, says that she's heard that he's thinking of running for president, which is a rumor that goes around quite frequently.
Oh my God. This is a little terrifying to me. That would certainly help, even if I think this is why Trump ran, right? He was trying to improve his brand name. He just wanted to amp up his business a little bit. So Mark Cuban's presidential campaign will probably start as a way to sell more drugs on his drug site, and then he'll end up winning and ruining the country.
I'm glad we're all able to laugh about this.
Right. It was a sad laugh. Haunted laugh.
So this whole damn thing sounds a lot like GoodRx, which is a service that I know I've used before.
Yeah, me too.
And so, I mean, is it like GoodRx?
Yeah, this was my first thought. I was like, how is this different from GoodRx? And I guess before we assume that everyone knows what GoodRx is, we should explain what it is. And I hope that you, dear listener, do not know what GoodRx is, because GoodRx is basically the thing you use when you really need a prescription drug and you're just like totally fucked and you can't find a way to get that prescription drug, either through your insurance company or through some other, legit means. So GoodRx, and I actually didn't know until we started doing research for this episode how exactly GoodRx is working. But basically, it's a website you can log in for free. You go there, and if you have a doctor prescribed medication, you can get that medication filled at a pharmacy for much, much cheaper. Again, you can't use your insurance, so it's very similar to the Mark Cuban thing. in that, you can't use their insurance card. You're buying this as an uninsured person, even if you have insurance. But the real big difference is that GoodRx you can only get at in-person pharmacies.
Right.
And the Mark Cuban thing is only an online mail order thing. And I know that actual medical providers and pharmacists have mixed feelings about online only stuff. You can't actually talk to somebody who knows about the drug, and they're not, they might not be as, they probably don't have as good access to like your whole medical history and maybe other drugs you might be taking, and that could be a conflict or lead to bad side effects. So I'm guessing an all online thing, you're getting some degradation of your actual quality of care. But if you have a warehouse shipping you drugs directly, it is generally always going to be much cheaper than if you go to a pharmacy, because a pharmacy adds their own markup. And this is the case even if you are getting drugs through your insurance company. Like usually you can get drugs through your insurance at a pharmacy, or you can have them shipped to your house, and it'll always, always, always be cheaper shipping them to your house. Your copay will be lower. So I won't get into all the details, but the Mark Cuban thing, they are their own pharmacy benefit manager, a pharmacy bullshit mountain. What GoodRx does is they let you shop between all of the PBMs, all the pharmacy bullshit mountains, for any given pharmacy. So even if you're going to one CVS or one Walgreens, you can shop between the price that you might get from like Express Scripts, which is one pharmacy benefit management, one of the two big ones, or from Caremark, which is the other monster PBM nationally. And, you might get a cheaper price, for example, at a CVS from Caremark, because Caremark is owned by CVS. So you can actually shop amongst them. So it's the only difference is one is online, one is kind of at a pharmacy, but their model is very, very similar. So I think this is the point at which we should talk about the drugs we take. And we actually did our own totally scientific investigation about whether Mark Cuban's online pharmacy system works compared to what we get through our insurance company, or what we would get through GoodRx getting the same drug in person. Jillian, what did you find with your own good drug stuff?
My investigation. So let me tell you about my happy pills. Okay.
Oh, lovely.
So they're not even really, they don't make me that happy, as you know. They really just make me like marginally less happy. So they're my marginally less happy pills.
Less unhappy.
Marginally less sad pills.
Yes, that's it. Bing, 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 bing. Antidepressants, I think they're called.
Antidepressants.
Right.
So this is fluoxetine, which is the generic of Prozac. Hello, Prozac Nation. Solidarity to all of you. And so I take 60 milligrams of fluoxetine a day, which for those who are psych med literate is really a shit ton of Prozac. So I take 60 milligrams a day. This is my bottle from the HEB, which is our beloved Texas grocery store. And I got that through GoodRx for $12 even through HEB. Of course, if I had gone through GoodRx but gone to the CVS, it would have been $31.25. So already we got these wild prices. And when the prices are like that different, it just
totally arbitrary.
Right. Yeah, right. Like they mean nothing, right? Like this is all just random numbers. Also I will say, so the Mark Cuban thing, that under their rate, my drugs would be $570 a month, plus $5 of shipping. So they do win in this.
You could have saved $1.50.
I could have saved a full $1.50. I don't need that much money. $1.50 is good.
And you wouldn't have had to talk to that bothersome pharmacist.
Seriously, I wouldn't have had to go into the HEB at all. Places is always a madhouse.
And so we do. It took like 3 months to fucking get you on the Healthcare Now insurance plan. We didn't have, you were our first employee in Texas, so it took like forever to get you
Mhm.
on insurance in Texas. So we don't. I guess we don't know yet what it would have cost you in terms of copays with an insurance plan.
That's true, but I will say that in the past, I've paid copays anywhere from $10 to $15 for that drug
Right.
in the
Yeah.
past.
That
Yeah.
sounds about normal. And I can
Mhm.
tell you for mine, I've talked about colchicine in the past. This is the drug for gout sufferers if you have a gout attack, which is very, very, very painful. It's like the miracle drug that cures your gout in 2 or
Poor
3 days. I have ranted about this because I won't re-rant my old rant, but I had a doctor say, if you go to the pharmacy to pick up your colchicine and they tell you it's like $1,000 copay or something, come to me and we'll try and find a solution to this. Because these greedy drug companies found a way to kind of repatent colchicine, even though it is mentioned in the fucking Bible. It's so old. It's made from a flower and it's been used for thousands of years, like this drug. Um, and they are now in the late 20th century, early 21st century, repatenting it as something like they fucking invented. But anyway, I looked up the cost of colchicine. On the Mark Cuban site, it's $8.70 for a 30 pill fill, plus $5 in shipping, so about $14. So that is more than if I just bought it through my insurance plan. Through my
Mhm.
insurance plan, it's $10 to get 30 pills if I go to a in-person pharmacy. And if I get mail order, which is like a 3-month supply, then it's much, much, much cheaper. Then it's only $20, including shipping for me. So this is probably, at least for me in this particular drug, it's definitely not cheaper than just going through my insurance plan, but it was cheaper than GoodRx, which was the cheapest plan I could find was $28.60 for 30 pills at a pharmacy. Again, that's kind of what you'd expect, that anything you pick up in a pharmacy is going to be cheaper than the mail order.
Should you just be growing your own?
My own,
Growing this flower that
oh my God.
for
When
your
my
gout?
doctor gave me this line, I thought about it. And then I did a Google search, which probably I shouldn't have even got that far, but you can easily kill yourself. Apparently, my brother also has gout. It runs through the family, so like every male in my family has gout. But apparently, the amount that can like kill you, like overdose of colchicine, is not much higher than the prescribed amount.
Oh,
So I'm not fully confident in my ability to do flower extraction in a way that doesn't result in death, but.
okay.
But
You're not willing to think
I
outside
had
the
the
box for
I had the
solutions.
thought. I had the thought. Maybe I can sell it online for cheaper.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah. So here's my thing with this, Ben.
Mhm.
My thing is that the thing I hate most of all is how, like, it's good, it could save you some money or whatever, but I hate how good this makes rich people feel about themselves.
Uh-huh.
Like, I really, really hate anything that just boosts their
Mhm.
self-esteem. And you should see the way that people are talking about this thing, right? Like, so Cuban actually said in his highly masturbatory mission statement, we started Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company because every American should have access to safe, affordable medicines. He's using our talking points, Ben.
It's true. And I mean, what we didn't do here in our cost comparison is look at what it would cost us in a country with single payer healthcare,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Well, that's
which would be just way, way, way lower than all of those things. What our insurance company pays, what GoodRx pays, what Mark Cuban pays. I mean, a lot of it would be marginal to zero copayment, and then the government plan that covers everyone would actually be paying much, much, much lower prices than any of this, especially for generic drugs. So.
yeah, 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 totally. So, regardless, Mark Cuban's really pleased with himself,
Mhm.
and he says he's going to show that capitalism can be compassionate, and to send the message, I'm all in. So like I just want to point out that I think that this is part of the fun woke washing PR trend in the pharma
Mhm.
industry that we've talked
Yeah.
about before. But just that, like, ever since the pandemic, big pharma brands have realized that now they have a lot more name recognition, right? You know, whether you got the Pfizer or the Moderna, and you know what you think is better, right? So people are showing like awareness of big pharma brands and also preference for different big pharma brands. And so this has been like the impetus for a lot of woke washing PR from the pharma companies who are trying to all like kind of fall over themselves to demonstrate how awesome they are for people.
And I forgot to say when I was talking about GoodRx that I think they had a public offering 2 years ago, which means that they listed themselves on Wall Street, and that means, you know, anyone can kind of publicly invest in the company. And apparently when they filed their initial filings, they said that they were making like a 40% profit, basically. Just insane amounts of money. And even if, you know, GoodRx is your best choice as an uninsured person, and maybe now this Mark Cuban online thing will also be a good choice if you want to order online. They are making 40% of what it actually costs for them to buy the drug. So it's all they, you know, when Mark Cuban says,
I'm now going to look up some anti-nausea medicines on it.
Right. I was just going to say, when Mark Cuban says that they're cutting middlemen out of the system, remember, they are a middleman in the system. They literally are a middleman in the system. And I wouldn't be shocked if they don't also make just outrageous profits off of this. So,
I mean, that's the thing. Like, they're making a shit ton of money. He wouldn't be doing it if he didn't. But at the same time, right, all these like right wingers are jumping on this as like a sign that like that anti-capitalists, and like also, I mean, I would identify as an anti-capitalist, but I don't know who my people are in that group of people that is. But Dave Ramsey, do you know who Dave Ramsey is, Ben?
I do not. I don't.
He's this like sublime jackass. He does this really popular, it's like one of the top 5 listened to radio shows in the country, and it's called The Ramsey Show, and it's he basically gives like bullshit financial advice, but also from a Christian lens. And so he did this whole segment that was like, anti-capitalists are angry at Mark Cuban because he's proving them wrong and proving that people who say that all capitalism is bad are stupid. So call me a dummy.
I'm a little rusty on Christian lens, but isn't there this whole usury thing and I don't know, profit making?
Hush up, Ben.
Right. Isn't it harder to pass through the eye of a needle than to get into I don't know.
Dave Ramsey is clearly on a tighter basis with God than we are, so listen to the man.
All right. Well, on the note of kind of Republican right-wing comments, I have to tell you, I found this amazing. I was reading through the different articles about Mark Cuban's sort of launch of this site over the last week. And, you know, I was reading the article in Becker's Hospital Review, which is this big healthcare site. You would never read their news site unless you're in the healthcare world all the time, like we are. But their post on the Cuban site had a sort of one comment that was featured. And this person said, as someone who has to take Zospata for leukemia, this is a start, but doesn't go into brand name robbery. Zospata is $24,000 a month. Insurance leaves me with a 20% copay, but thank God insurance does cover some of the cost. Each of the 3 daily pills is the size of a baby aspirin. It is a life-saving drug, and Zospata knows you'll spend all your retirement funds to stay alive. I'm a Republican. I'm very upset the party voted against Medicare negotiating drug costs. And not just the Republican Party, but there was a few Democrats as well who fucked that up for us. And then this person goes on to say places in Europe can get Zospata for a total cost of $10,000 a year. Compare that to $24,000 a month, which is half of what it costs for 1 month in the United States. The Republicans' excuse was that negotiating pricing stops research. This is lies. So this is, I mean, it's funny when you talk about an actual issue, how sometimes being Republican, Democrat doesn't matter quite as much. Someone who has an actual life-saving drug that they need, that they're getting totally screwed over for. I mean, I don't know what 20% of $24,000 a month is, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot and hard to afford. So this is really I mean, it's so ironic that this thing is being launched on the heels of like a failed national health plan that would have allowed Medicare to negotiate drug prices. I remember in the middle of that fight when we were trying to get in the Build Back Better bill, trying to get Medicare to negotiate drug prices. There's a big article saying that Costco pays less than Medicare does for about 50% of generic drugs, for more than 50% of generic drugs. So Costco does the same shit that GoodRx does and that this Mark Cuban thing does. You can walk into a Costco and buy generic drugs for at a rate as an uninsured person, and you'll get lower rates than Medicare pays for sometimes, which is wild. Yeah.
Shame.
It's all just kind of crazy confusing too. It's like, it feels like there's just funny money being thrown around. Like, how much does this cost here or there at this site or at this negotiated rate? And it's like someone threw a bunch of bills in the air and they just landed in different places. It's like, total bullshit.
Yeah, if something costs $47 a month in one place and $9,500 a month in another place, like, clearly it's just someone throwing darts at,
something has gone wildly wrong in your healthcare system at that stage, right?
Are you saying there's something wildly wrong with our healthcare system?
Oh, maybe.
What should we do about that?
Yeah, and I mean, long story short, of course, this is what happens when there's a million different entities buying drugs. Some of them have enough power to negotiate low drug prices. Some of those entities will pass it along to only insured people, their negotiated rates. Some will pass it on to only uninsured people or not include them at all. Each entity gets a different price from like each drug company and from each pharmacy that buys each drug. So it's just total Wild West out there. This is, I guess, what capitalism in healthcare looks like when you think about it. Like,
yeah.
Are you big enough to negotiate a price? And most places aren't. Certainly uninsured people aren't. So I don't know. Long story short, I don't think it's not a terrible development. If this helps you, especially if you're uninsured, then definitely use it. It's not gonna transform the cost of healthcare in America, because this is a very small niche market. And they are another middleman, and they are making a shit ton of money off of you. You should be paying even lower prices than that, and you would be if we had Medicare for all. So,
I think the punchline here is U.S. government, do better than Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
Right?
And if you can't, fucking retire. Like, or not, maybe even more narrow than U.S. government, like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, do better than Mark Cuban, right?
Do better than Mark Cuban. Yeah, and honestly, that should be a pretty low bar.
Yeah. Especially with that toupee that he wears. I mean, come on. All right. So I think we're going to sign off here. This was an interesting development in the healthcare system that I didn't see coming. But I don't want to leave before thanking our podcast team, our podcast manager, Angelique Davis, our researcher for this episode, who actually noticed this breaking development news and suggested this episode, which was awesome. It was Lindsay Baish. Our audio editor was Christian Brandt, and our show notes writer was Jerry Katz. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Stay safe and stay dangerous.
Bye.